Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Conversation 28, Mindfulness for Children and Parents. So I was recently asked a question about mindfulness around children and how to teach it to them. And given that I spend most of my time with two small children as a nanny, I do teach them mindfulness, and I do talk about our thoughts and our feelings and what that looks like, and how they can, as small children, navigate their life through school, through friendships, and just through day-to-day life, through listening to me as their carer, through listening to their parents, through navigating sibling rivalry, all of these sorts of things. And I have seen it work like now in real time with the 10-year-olds and the 7-year-olds that I look after. And I've had feedback from the children. So what I'm saying really is sinking in. And so I'm just gonna, I've been inspired because I've been asked to help somebody's child with mindfulness. And so um, the inspiration came from that. And I thought, well, I don't have a mindfulness video, so let's make one. And what I see around mindfulness and children and parents, and what we can do as adults for our children, whether they're nanny children or they're our children with their parent, whatever it is, or you're a grandparent, you're looking after your grandchild. Humans as a whole, whether we're a child or an adult, it doesn't matter. We have very big emotions, and we're living in we've always lived in uncertain times. We've always lived in a confusing world with a lot going on. And now more than ever, because we have technology and we have social media and we have news at our fingertips, um, and so there is a lot coming in. And so when you've got a small child who is trying to navigate big emotions in this sort of crazy world and trying to navigate it through with their friends and at school and then again at home, there's a lot going on for that child, whether they verbalize it in words or you notice it in their behavior. Bad behavior isn't bad behavior. There's more to that, but that's a topic for another day. Um, and so I've just made a few notes here as to what to touch on. And the first bit I wrote is like we all have millions of thoughts that pop into our heads, and we don't have control over what thought comes into our head. That's down to God. And if God's not your word, don't worry, never fear. Just use another word that makes sense to you. But God really makes sense to me. And so we don't get to choose. These thoughts just pop in either through, God, or through what we've seen on TV or heard. And sometimes they're just completely random and they make no sense. Science, I don't think, has figured out why we get the thoughts we get. Um, And some of these thoughts are really useful. They're really helpful. They're like, maybe what's 2 times 6? It's 12. Oh, okay. Thank you, thought. That was really helpful. Now I know 2 times 6 is 12. Um, and sometimes they're not so helpful, and they're like, oh, I don't know how to answer 6 times 9, and I'm bad, and that means I'm silly. And in the interest of keeping this tailored towards parents and children, so when these thoughts pop into your child's head or your head, um, of, I'm not good enough. I'm not good because now I don't know the answer to this, or I'm not good because that person doesn't want to be my friend. Those are unhelpful thoughts. And sometimes the most of the time what happens with thoughts, any thoughts, good or bad, they turn into belief systems. They develop sort of like a foundation for which your child bases the rest of their future experiences on. So it's like, oh well, that thing happened, and so that means X, and now this, and it goes down into this rabbit hole, and it forms a foundation of what becomes true for them. And so if you have a child who is struggling with sort of discerning what thoughts are real and what thoughts are not. What I find really helpful is when I explain to a child, like, you at your core, your truth, and I have said this to children before, that the truth of who you are is love, that you are made out of love. And so everything else that says you are not just cannot be true. And so when we give our child this starting point that they are love through and through, that their truth is love, when thoughts pop into their head, um, that they're not good enough, that they're silly, that they're the worst. These are just thoughts like clouds passing by in the sky. And if we think of the love as the sunshine, the sun doesn't actually go anywhere. So we say the sun sets and the sun rises, but it doesn't. The earth is just turning, and so we cannot see the sun anymore. But the sun is still there, it's always there. And it's the same for our true nature. So our true nature is love, it's peace, it's wisdom. And so imagine that our true nature is the sun, and the thoughts are the clouds that pass through. And sometimes those clouds are nice and they're really pretty to look at. And it's, oh, I should make a cake, or I should do my homework, or I should tidy my toys, and I should give my mum a hug, I should give my brother a hug. Like, these thoughts thoughts aren't the bad guy. They're just part of being human. And thoughts create a feeling in us. And so when we sort of follow those good thoughts, let's call them, for lack of a better word. So when we follow those sort of happy inducing thoughts that are truly happy, like they are truly good and they come from a good place, let's draw a nice picture for my grandma, let's tidy my room, those kinds of thoughts. Um, we feel good. We feel good about ourselves, the people around us then tend to respond well to those behaviors because they're all sort of in alignment with our truth. They're in alignment with love. But what happens when you, for example, you've got a child who's being really nice, being really loving to her friends, and and her friends are not being so nice to her? What happens then? That child then thinks, okay, well, maybe there's something wrong with me. And that's when the first sort of like storm cloud comes through. And if it, not if it doesn't get addressed, because sometimes we can address it in the best possible way that we can, and it still sort of expands because as humans, even little ones, um, have free will. We have our own free will to choose which words we're going to listen to, which people we're going to listen to, and which thoughts are going to stick out most to us. And so, because of that free will, it doesn't matter really what we tell our child, they are going to choose what makes the most sense to them in that moment. But all is not lost. The more we talk to ourselves, and mainly ourselves, because it starts there. So the more we talk to ourselves, that love is the foundation, that love is the truth of who we are as the adult, as the nanny or the parent, and we sort of ground ourselves in that and build our own firm foundation. What we can then give to our child is massive because then we can show them that when things aren't great, when big emotions are arising, um, they have us to turn to. And I think the most important thing when teaching mindfulness to a child is that adults can feel big emotions just the same as children do. And I think that bit is very important. But I feel like I'm digressing a little bit. I'm just going to check my notes. Um, oh yes, my favorite one. So because we are love at our core, um, and the biggest sort of thing that I feel that I wasn't taught as a child, or you know, we're just not taught because it's kind of like a missing link in maybe psychology or schooling, Um, but just because a thought is in your head doesn't mean it's true. And you don't have to jump on board that cloud. You don't have to run with that. If there's a thought that pops into your head and you don't like it, you can't will it away. You can't be like, okay, I'm not going to think that bad thought. Because if I say, don't think of a pink elephant, what are you thinking about? So if we say, okay, I'm just not going to think negative thoughts, I'll only think positive thoughts, that doesn't work because we're not designed that way. We're not designed to control our thoughts. Thoughts will continue to pop in the same way the earth continues to turn. And sometimes we can see the sun and sometimes we cannot. It's the same with our true nature, our love. Sometimes we can see it, sometimes we can feel it, and sometimes we just simply cannot. And in those moments where we cannot feel it, it's important to, before we've reached those moments, build the foundation of something to come back to, of a path to draw back to. And um, love is so centering because we can have a destination to go back to. So when we are in a clouded space and not sure which way to turn, especially if it's a child who's so small, as the adult, we can guide them. We can give them examples of what they can do. They can write their emotions, they can draw their emotions, they can talk about it. But most importantly, because sometimes those things aren't available, writing, talking, or drawing about your emotions, those things, like maybe it's the middle of the night and it's bedtime, or sometimes those things, those outlets are not feasible to do in that moment where they're feeling bad. And so the other thing that um, we can invite our children to do, or I can invite you to do as an adult, as a parent, is in those moments where your child is feeling rubbish or you are feeling rubbish, it's there isn't anything to do on a physical level because within our minds, within our hearts, we can hold ourselves as the adult and we can teach our child to hold themselves whilst knowing that they're never alone. And if you believe in God, or God is a word that works for you, then that's even more, because for me, we are never alone because we always have God, that God is always there and always with us. And so in those times where we're in bed and we're feeling really rubbish about life or about something, or negative thought pops into our heads, right when we're about to sleep, we can know, we can trust in the foundation of God that we are held. Um, and for those of you where God doesn't work, that's where the word love really does sort of stand in its substitute. And so we can just help our child to sort of imagine all the nice things and turn to the nice things that make them laugh, or make them feel loving. Like imagine a time that's really loving. And the more we place our thoughts and then we choose which direction to go, no matter how many times the negative ones pop up, we can continue to go in the direction of love. And again, sometimes what can happen with this is we're forcing ourselves, we kind of try to force ourselves to feel something different when we're just not able to. We're feeling really upset, really angry, really sad, and we're trying to force ourselves to feel happy and peaceful, and it's just not working. And the best thing you can do there is allow yourself to feel those emotions, because all the imagining in the world and all the turning your attention away from the bad into the good, we can do that if it's working. Writing emotions down, drawing pictures, talking about it, all of those things are valid things. But sometimes feeling the emotion, just sitting in the emotion, if your child's crying and screaming, maybe just sitting there, not saying anything, offering them a hug, and if they want the hug, hug them and don't let them go until they're ready to let go. Those sorts of things. When there are big emotions, sometimes adults and children alike just need to be held. And sometimes that's physically by another person. And sometimes you can just hold space for yourself. And that is the biggest thing here in this world for children and for adults. And I feel like it starts with adults because we have lived a bit more and we have more experiences, and we're here to guide the children of today. We're here to help them navigate this crazy world. Um, and so, just to summarize a little bit on our thought, feeling, created reality, it's when a thought pops into our heads. That's everybody, every human. A feeling arises from that. And it then creates what we see in the world, you know. So if the thought is, I'm not good enough, thought pops into our heads, I'm not good enough, the feeling isn't very nice. And so what comes out into the world is evidence that we are not good enough. Maybe we don't, you know, for the sake of it being tailored towards children, maybe we don't do our homework and our parents tell us off and our teachers tell us off. Oh, okay, see, I'm not good enough. Maybe we're really grumpy because we're not feeling nice inside, of course. So of course we're grumpy. And we say something mean to our friend. And our friend retaliates and says something worse back to us. Okay, proof, see, I'm not good enough. And it keeps on going like that and going like that. And especially for children, because they're so little and their brain is not fully developed, it gets out of hand and behaviors, start arising, sort of like bad behaviors, what's been called bad behaviors. And sorry, because they are still learning to regulate their emotions and understand how the world works. And because we as adults barely understand how the world works and how us as humans work, it gets quite tricky and it can be quite frustrating for parents. It's like, why are you behaving like this? You don't behave like this before. And so we address the behaviors, you're acting out at school, so until you be good, this punishment is going to be put in place. Until you start listening, but we need to sort of rewind and go back to what's underneath and what's happening that led to those behaviors. And usually it is that first thought, that initial thought that induced a feeling that then created their world. And then they would pinpoint all the evidence that supports that thought. And we all do it. We all innocently and accidentally do that in like everyday life. A thought pops into our heads, it induces a feeling, it sort of forms a belief within us that that is true. And so just because of the way this thought feeling created reality works, it shows in our reality, it plays out in our experiences. And so in order to sort of like reverse that, it's just bringing our awareness that we have thinking. It's just that once you put your awareness on the fact that you have thoughts popping into your heads and that awareness is there, it's almost like magic that it changes. That because now we know that there's thoughts popping into our heads and we don't have to run with them all. We can be selective, we can be choosy, we can be fussy. We can say, no, I don't like that thought. That thought says I'm not good enough, and that's just not true because I'm made out of love. So it's like finding something that your child knows is not true because it's just ludicrous. It's just, I'm trying to think now, something that would be completely absurd to a child. Like, for example, are you a green frog? That child, a 10-year-old, a 7-year-old would know that they're not a green frog. They might play pretend and they might be sarcastic if you were to ask your child, are you a green frog? Um, but they know that they're not a green frog. And so if you tell them, okay, you're a green frog, they're not going to believe it. So it's when we use examples like that for our children, it kind of, well, if one gets them out of their sort of rut of negative thinking, whatever belief got put in place in the first place that they picked up on. So it kind of makes them giggle, and then it gives them something to come back to. So if a thought pops into their heads, I'm bad, they can come back to, well, I'm not a green frog, that's not true. So they get to question their thoughts. Am I bad? Question mark. And then maybe rather than taking on that belief, I am bad and running with it, they might have a question, am I bad? And then they'll go and ask a grown up, or they'll go and ask their friends, or something will change within their behavior just because their awareness has been brought to the fact that thoughts pop into their heads and not all of it is true. Um, and the other thing is, there was one other thing I wanted to say. Okay, it's gone. Never mind. Um, so once we've got our awareness on thinking and the fact that we think, our reality changes because that's how our thought feeling system works. It's like it's the inside out. So it looks like other people can make us feel bad and other people can make us feel good, but it's not the way it works. It works the other way around. Our feelings come from inside us and then get projected out. Oh, that was the other thing. If you have a purse or a box, um, let's say a box, because most children don't have purses. So let's say you have a little box, and inside that box you have two toys and two little, Lego people toys. You cannot give out three. You cannot give somebody three Lego people toys because you've only got two. So whatever's going on inside you as a human being, whatever's going on inside, that's what you can give out. And so if you've taken on the belief, I am bad, I'm not good enough, that's the feeling that is inside you. It's not nice. And so your behaviors, your words, your actions, everything that comes out is going to come from that initial thought of I'm not good enough or I'm bad. It's going to come back to that. But because at our true nature we are love, sometimes you will come back to that and you will tap into that because you don't have to do anything or change anything. It's just our nature. And so our nature will pop up sometimes. And then we'll say something nice, or feel calmer, we'll feel good about ourselves again. And then something will happen out in the world that confirms the negative belief. And so we'll go back to the bad behaviors, to the sort of whatever is going on, to the we'll continue giving out what we have in our box. And so it's important to continuously fill ourselves up and to surround ourselves with um, people who will point us back to truth. Because what I'm teaching here, mindfulness and pointing back to truth, everything, it's all a pointing, it's all a guiding. The answers are inside of all of you, all of us as humans, we have the answers within us. We know when something feels off. We have intuition and gut instincts, even children. And and so when we guide them back to this, it feels nice and it feels true for them. So as if by magic, their behaviors change. Um, so we have come to the end of today's conversation, and I really hope that was something helpful today. If you have any questions at whatsoever, or you'd like me to touch on a topic that is permeating in your life, please let me know. My email will be below this video, or you can just comment below this video. And don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. Lots of love, and I'll see you again somewhere soon. Bye for now.